Right.
generally, when you're in doubt, just leave out. Don't be the don't just people need to, just not be crazy about breaking bad news. Why? Why
Mhm.
are you excited about someone's death, or
Right.
someone, you know,
Right. I like that. When in doubt, just leave
leave
out.
out?
That's actually a really cool one. Misinformation is a major problem in today's society, but it has been exacerbated in today's digital space due to the ease and speed at which it spreads. I am Yvonne, and welcome to Verity Times. In today's episode, I'll be talking to Yvonne Okhaifoh. She is a news correspondent at Nigerian Info, and we'll be talking about misinformation spread in the media and ways to tackle it. So, Yvonne, I'll leave you to introduce yourself right now.
Hi, Yvonne. You already did the introduction. I don't think there's anything else I should add. But yeah, you're right. I'm a newscaster. I'm also a reporter, a news correspondent. Basically a broadcast journalist with Nigeria Info here in Nigeria.
Awesome, awesome, great. You didn't talk about all your awards and fellowships, but
Well,
okay.
I don't want to do this all of that.
Okay, cool. Now, I am so glad to have you in today's conversation because I know like you'll be sharing like real time from your experience. And so let's go to the first question I have for you today. How prevalent is misinformation in today's media landscape? And what are some of the common forms of misinformation that you've observed?
Well, the first one, top on my list, would be propaganda. That's a huge one, and it's prevalent, especially close to election time, as we witnessed not long ago, a
Mhm.
few months ago, prior to the election. And a lot of the things that were used by opposition parties to try to discredit, opposition parties just to look good and garner votes and support. So one leading a form of misinformation definitely is a propaganda. Another one would be information that is misleading in the sense that sometimes how you pick up when how you go on social media to uh, and then you just see this headline that pops up at you, and you see that it's like, ooh, okay, this looks catchy. I want to see what the information is all about. And then
Mhm.
when you click on that headline, you realize that the story isn't as sensational as the headline portrayed it to be. Well, that's another one. And another one would be manipulated, content.
Mm.
Now, this one is a problem because journalists are guilty of this as well. So perhaps you're interviewing someone and then you ask them a question and then they make a statement, but perhaps not on the record. That kind of thing. They say, oh, this is off the record. But then as a
Mhm.
journalist, because perhaps that thing that person has said is something that that you really would have loved for that person to say on the record, you go on to now put that on the record. Or this person says something, but then you deliberately take it out of context. You
Mm.
deliberately take it out of context just to prove a point or to drive some what's the word I'm looking for now, some traffic, whatever. So those are the three that really come to my mind.
Right. And I agree with that. When you talked about the headline one, I just remembered like there's a term that they call those things like clickbaits, right? Where you just
Indeed.
see the title is very different from what the content when you click on it actually truly is.
I find that quite annoying,
It
honestly.
it is actually, and I would say that because of the metrics, right? The more clicks you have, or the more like engagement you have with a post, right? Um, these platforms will definitely show more of these things, right? So if someone clicks on this thing more often, or if they like it more often and stuff, even though that's not the right information or that's not what is the
Right.
correct information, right? You see that people
Mm-hmm.
still engage with it. Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you for um that detailed breakdown. So another thing that I would like to ask is, as I'm from Nigeria, right? And I know that like I never really used to fact check information, right? When I see something. And now it's different because I'm aware that misinformation is a big problem and we're all susceptible to it, right? And so what would you say about fact checking as a whole? Like, how do you approach it as a news correspondent? And what are some challenges that you encounter, right? Because there is a body that actually, it's a fact checking network, right? That has like different sites where you can fact check information. But I don't even think people really know about it. But how about you? How do you fact check on your job to make sure that the information you're putting out there is the correct one, right? Because usually when there is like a trending event or something, the media is out there to like, they want to put it out there first, like, oh, I want this to be launched through our platform and stuff.
Right,
So how do you
right.
go about fact checking?
Well, one thing we do for sure is I do is when in doubt, I just leave out. When I
Mm,
don't have all the facts, I leave out, because it is better to, and that's what we do here at Nigeria Info. We are not quick to break news. We're not excited about breaking news because, breaking news comes with a lot of sensationalism, and then sometimes details are, left out and all of that. So it's really important that, hold on a second. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. You guys, can you tone it down, please? Thank you. I told you, I warned you. It's a
yeah,
madhouse.
that's fine.
I'm in the newsroom, so this it's what it is. But yes, I was going to say, ah, God, they made me lose my train of thought. But I was going to say that when in doubt, leave out, and because yeah, okay, I remember now. I was talking about Nigeria Info and how we are not quick to break, we're not quick at letting out breaking news because
Mhm.
sometimes breaking news might be breaking, but it's not complete, you
Right.
know, especially when it involves death, or something from the government. We like to take our time to ensure that we cover our bases, which is
Mm,
really important. So, one thing I always do is when I'm in doubt, I leave out.
okay.
Another thing again is to reach out to sources, credible
Right.
sources, because it's broadcast media. It is
Mhm.
something that we have to, do on the go actively. It's real time. So we reach out to sources to corroborate whatever information we've just gotten. And another thing is if we're looking at print media, perhaps for social media, you come across something that is, you're not sure of,
Right.
if it involves a favorite celebrity, for example, a particular celebrity, you might just want to go to their a handle just to check what is going on there, or wait for the craze and all of that to just settle down.
Yeah.
Because usually celebrities would rather keep quiet in the heat of the moment. They don't put out statements immediately. They just, want it to settle down a bit before they then put out the statement. So I think the goal is really not to be the first to. I don't know why people like to be harbingers of bad news. They're
Mm,
always excited about, and it's a problem. So when in doubt, just leave out. Really, when in
that's
doubt,
right.
leave out. And use fact checking tools. I know that that's a problem. That's something that a lot of people are unaware of, but there are actually fact checking tools to help confirm, if an image is real, if a video is real, if,
Mhm.
if information is real. So, but now that's just talking in the advanced stage, right? But
Right.
generally, when you're in doubt, just leave out. Don't be the
Awesome.
don't just people need to, just not be crazy about breaking bad news. Why? Why
Mhm.
are you excited about someone's death or
Right.
someone, you know,
Right. I like that. When in doubt, just leave out.
uh,
That's actually a really cool one. And that leads me to my next question, right? So, we both know, and I would really want you to talk about the NSAS example that happened
mm,
in Nigeria,
mm,
right? And how there was an influx of misinformation, right? And there was the whole platform, oh, this is what happened. This didn't happen. And like some media, like there was a divide, right? So some media outlets would say, oh, this happened and that didn't happen, right? And so how do you think that affects public discourse, right, in society? How do you think that divide in the media and the reporting itself like leaves the public confused?
mm.
And in such an instant, from your experience, like how did you think that it was or the navigation process was at that time?
This is a great question, because it is something that I lived through, the NSAS saga, all of that
Mm-hmm.
madness. But you see, there are a great many examples of instances where misinformation has just, caused a lot of problem. Now, if you remember, in 2013, when Ebola broke out in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this madness about, oh my God, I don't want to get Ebola. So people were forced to drink salt water, and a lot of
Right.
people from that. Now, fast forward to 2020, the same thing happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of misinformation. I heard crazy ones about the COVID-19 vaccine and how it could turn people into shining, into robots, and all of those craziness, all of
Mm-hmm.
that craziness, rather. And then, in the heat of that COVID-19 and all of that drama, the NSAS protest broke out, and
Right.
oh my God, it got to a point that it became so wild, because young people were trying to air their displeasure at
Mm-hmm.
at police brutality and what was going on in the country. But then a few unscrupulous people decided to use that opportunity to just spread lies and just make it more sensational, and then that led to the death of a lot of people.
Mm.
People died as a result of misinformation. They died because you know people who had I, for one, don't understand why people would deliberately, spread false information. At some point, the information, what was making the rounds, was that these young people who were protesting were trying to usurp the government. Were trying
Mm.
to overthrow the government, and that then led, I dare say that. Just set the precedent for the NSAS shooting that happened at the
Mm-hmm.
Lekki toll gate. You know, uh,
Yeah.
in that way. People died as a result. That's just a clear cut example of how deadly misinformation can be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started out with young people protesting police brutality and, ill treatment from the police. But for some reason, the government heard something entirely different, because people spun the wheel around and told the government that these young people were trying to usurp the government, were trying
Mm-hmm.
to overthrow the government, and then soldiers were released, were deployed to the protest ground, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what happened. So that is just a clear example of how dangerous misinformation is, how deadly, in fact, it can be.
It is. It is. And to be honest, we sometimes, the problem why, like, I think a lot of people are not really concerned about misinformation is because it doesn't hit home. It doesn't look like it has a direct effect until it
Exactly.
happens, or it doesn't
Until
look
it
like the impacts are negative until it happens. And you can
happens.
see, like, I can tell you so many people feared for their life during the NSAS, even the COVID-19 pandemic. So many people, because of the misinformation that they believed, wouldn't take the vaccines.
The
Like there was
vaccine,
vaccines
exactly.
hesitancy, right? There
Mhm.
was like so many misinformation on and just flying left and right. And that leads me to the next question, right? So I read a research that talked about persuasive strategies, right, in
Mhm.
misinformation spread. And part of it is storytelling, like vivid storytelling, where visuals and text are actually used to spread misinformation. And I dare say that I did believe some of them during the COVID-19 pandemic. Like you would see
Mhm.
very gothic and horrible images where they'd be like, oh,
Mhm.
this person took the vaccine and that happened.
And this
And there would
happened,
be
yes.
like places and timestamps, and you'll be like, oh my God, it kind of looks believable. Or they'll just show a picture of someone on the bed and saying, oh, this person took the vaccine and this happened, or this person didn't take it and lost this and that. And so,
Mhm.
what would you say about the emotional appeal that comes with the spread of misinformation? And especially as emotional beings that we are, right? When you
Mhm.
see something, it's like it appeals to your emotions. When you see that, oh, this is exactly what happened to someone and you don't want that to happen to you. So, what would you suggest as beyond fact checking, right? As some tips that people could actually like use to navigate their emotions when they come across like information online?
Well, first of all, emotions are facts. And I think that is something we need to imbibe as a people. Emotion, no matter how moving something might be,
Mm,
it doesn't mean that it's a fact. And I think when we let ourselves understand that reality, it then will help us, it still will help us um become more objective when um when um when we come across some of these stories online or in print. you know just have it in your subconscious that emotions aren't fact. No matter how moving this story is, despite how oh, I'm about to cry, how moving it is not a fact. And the
Mhm.
thing about facts is that they don't lie. Facts never lie. But emotions are
Right.
here today and gone tomorrow. They're just so fleeting. So I think it is important that as a people, about beyond fact checking, the first thing to do is approach every story with caution. Approach it with caution, because again, emotions are not facts. So if you're reading a moving story about how someone took the vaccine and then the person passed away, as moving as that might sound, you may want to ask other questions as well. Was
Mm.
did this person have underlying health issues, for example? What vaccine did this person take? Because it's weird, it's crazy to just say vaccines kill. Doesn't make any sense, because we know for a fact that vaccines save lives. That is the fact. There used to be polio, people took vaccines for polio,
Mhm.
and now a lot of people were saved from what's the word I'm looking for now? From deformity
Mm.
as a result of the polio vaccine, you know. So
Right.
that is the fact. Vaccines save lives, So we cannot then single out just one scenario and then try to make it the reality when in fact it isn't the
Right.
reality. So emotions are not facts. And I believe that if we, as human beings, consciously, tell ourselves, remind ourselves of this truth that
Mhm.
emotions are not facts, then we'll become more logical beings. We'll think more logically and more objectively.
That's right. And there was this, I'm trying to remember the article that I read that talked about cognitive abilities, talked about how like people who really believe misinformation, like they're educated people who believe misinformation. And a lot of reasons can like there's some things that could be for some of the reasons like confirmation bias, right? Where you believe,
Yeah,
yeah, you believe because this aligns with your belief, right? You even if it's false, you accept it like, oh
you're
yeah,
inclined to believe it. Yes.
exactly. And then there's some people who engage their cognitive abilities, right? They critically think about this information, right? And analyze it and say, oh, this is beyond just my emotions, right? What
Mhm,
exactly is this information about? How truthful can this be? And they
mhm,
analyze it, right? I think I'm of the school of thought that you don't have to be educated to engage your cognitive abilities, right? Because in the end, we're in this digital space where whether you're educated or not, like you'll still fall prey to misinformation if you're not careful because it's even on your WhatsApp, right? These days where you just have
everywhere. It is
exactly.
everywhere. You see BCCs everywhere. You come across, oh my God. 2020 was the year. It was
Mm,
a madhouse. You couldn't open WhatsApp without one message telling you
right.
how
That's true.
19 vaccine would kill you or
Yeah,
deform you or turn you into an alien. It was crazy
that's
at
true.
that time. And I took the vaccines, and 3 years on, I'm still waiting to be transformed into an alien.
Right, right. Fun fact, I didn't take the vaccine in Nigeria because I was scared.
Mhm.
And then when I got here and I saw that it was a normal thing. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I just had to take the vaccine to protect myself. And this is
Yeah.
me. I'm still alive.
Exactly. So what are people so afraid of? Again, it still comes down to the lack of right information,
Right.
and how we let our emotions cloud our minds and
Mhm.
then leave us, bereft of logical reasoning. So
Right.
again, it's important to know that emotions aren't facts,
True.
and there's no other way to put it. Emotions are not facts. We can
Right.
feel what we want to feel, but emotions are not facts.
That's
The
right.
facts are there and they do not lie.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. That was like very detailed. Now to you, my last question, right? And it's so funny how yesterday I watched a video, it was a TEDx talk, and
Mm-hmm.
it was on AI and misinformation. And it
Mm-hmm.
just ties to my last question that I'm going to ask you, right? So part of what the speaker talked about was how there was this, he talked about an example of chat gpt, so someone had a prompt on chat gpt to write um it was like a accusation against someone for
Mm-hmm.
it was a rape accusation actually, and
Wow.
chat gpt wrote a Washington Post article on a particular professor who never had anything to do with such an accusation. Chat GPT, and I'm going to put the like video snippet here when I edit the when I'm about to post this video. And Chat GPT had an article and reference to Washington Post and put a professor's name from a university. And I'm like, oh my God, this never happened. This never happened. But this AI tool like would fabricate a story just because it can, right? And so that leads me to my next question. Do you think there has to be a collaboration, right, between news organizations? Because they're actually really trying. They understand that misinformation is a problem. um,
Mm-hmm.
Fact checkers, like all these fact checking sites that we have, and technology companies, right? Do you think there has to be like a collective effort between these three bodies? Let me use the word bodies in quote. Do you think there has to be a collective effort between them to combat misinformation spread? Because whether we like it or not, right, technology is here to stay and
That's
it
right.
will advance, right? And AI is the buzz now. Before you know, there's like something else, and we cannot take away the fact that information is spread that way too, right? So what would you suggest, or what are some of your suggestions for how this can actually be navigated?
It's interesting that you mentioned AI because I run a show. I do a show
Mhm.
every Sunday on it's tech inspired. It's a tech inspired show, and one of the conversations we've had recently is about artificial intelligence
Mhm.
and all the good things that it can do. But then again, the cons of this new and exciting technology, which of course is one of them. Obviously, what you just mentioned, it's a problem. It is a menace as it stands. And if tech companies and fact checkers don't collaborate with the media, we're going to have a lot of problems. We already have problems, Yvonne,
Mhm.
but we are going to have a whole lot of problems in future if there's no adequate collaboration. And one way all three stakeholders can, collaborate is to, you know, engage in training. For example,
Mm.
a lot of journalists still don't even know what artificial intelligence is.
Mm.
A lot of journalists who still don't understand what AI is, what artificial intelligence or augmented reality is. So it is important to, for these tech companies, yes, to train journalists, and then fact checkers come in to teach journalists, fact checking tools and how to use these fact checking tools to, combat misinformation. So, as a matter of fact, these three stakeholders are going to be the defenders of truth, because as it
Right.
stands now, we are approaching an age where truth is blurred. You do not you what we'll get to a point where we do not even know what really is true anymore,
Mm.
because I see a lot of pictures now that are AI generated and they look so
Right.
good. And then you're like, oh my God, girl, you're so beautiful, but I've
Mhm.
never seen this picture of you before. So you're wondering, is this a real
Right.
photo? Is this a real photo, or is it AI generated? That is where
Mhm.
we are headed now. So it's important that fact checkers collaborate with tech companies to educate journalists on what artificial intelligence is and how artificial intelligence can be manipulated to spread misinformation, and then fact checkers on their own part educate journalists on not just journalists, really, everyone, because
Everyone,
everyone
right.
needs to be aware, everyone needs to know these things. So fact checkers can then teach uh, everyone, as I said, tools to combat misinformation. To fact check a video comes out and you're wondering, is this real? Of course, there's a tool for that, and that is where tech is. That's where tech comes in. You see this photo that looks so good. Okay, is this real? How can I confirm that this is even real? There's
Mhm,
a tool for that as well. You come across something on social media, a write up, for example, an article that seems so real, but then you are not sure if this is real, if someone actually wrote this, if someone really writes this.
mhm.
There should be a tool for that. But then all these things are great, but without the right education, without the right training, they're useless per
That's
se.
right. That's very true. Because and this thing you said is so true because I recently saw a video on how to, so we all, not everybody knows that you can actually fact check with Google. Not everybody knows that. And so like
Yeah.
you can actually, and I'm gonna do a video on that, on how to actually use Google to even fact check. If you cannot go to Reuters or go to
Mhm.
Africa Fact Check or go to like some of these fact checking sites, what you have at your beck and call, or whatever it's called, like you can actually use it, right? And not so many people know that. And just even having Google to do a training on that, on educating like the public on how to fact check with their site, goes a long way to help combat misinformation.
Yes. And I should add also that people can. I'm just going to mention two tools that people can use to fact check. One
Mhm,
of them, of course, is reverse image engine or reverse image search. Tin Eye, for instance. Tin
mhm,
Eye tells you if this image is legit. If it's real, if it's been used, if it's been recycled, because
mhm,
that is another form of misinformation. People go to images from 1998 or 2002.
right.
Perhaps it's on something related to flooding, for example. But just to drive home their point, they go to an image of many years ago,
Mhm,
lift that image to prove their point. And that is sensationalism. And it is wrong because it is not what it is. This is
right.
false, it is misleading, you know. So that image has been manipulated to suit a purpose.
That's
So
right.
of course, people can and should check out Tin Eye. Another one is Invid. That's for videos. Invid is for videos. If a video has also been manipulated, Invid will tell you if that video has been manipulated and
That
how old the video even is as well.
Wow, wow,
Mhm.
that's so great. That's great because I mean you can see like some videos that have from the past, way from the past.
Tell
And
you.
because something
Mhm.
is happening now, people just be like, "Oh, this just happened 2 minutes ago."
Yeah, and I should add that I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I wanted to point out that we saw a lot of this during the NSAS protest as well. Images were just all over the place. Images from different countries. I'm
That's
telling you,
right.
Yvonne, I saw a lot of pictures, of people of people dead people,
Hmm.
and people injured, bleeding everywhere. Gory images that were from a war, a tribal war fought in one country, in Rwanda, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
during the ethnic crisis there, or in another country, just to try and blow everything out of proportion and spread propaganda. We saw a
That's
lot of that
right.
happen in 2020 during the NSAS protest.
That's right. That's so true. Oh my God, this has been such a very insightful conversation. And I am so thankful for creating the time to have this conversation with me and for, helping together like combat misinformation spread because this again is a collective effort. And so thank you
Mm.
for your time.
Thank
And
you so much.
yeah,
Thank
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 you.
you. And I should also apologize for the noise in the background. I'm still in the newsroom, so it's wild in here. It is
Okay, that's
crazy.
fine.
I hope that you're able to, glean information, salvage what you can from this video. If you'd like for
Right.
us to reschedule, you might as well. We could reschedule if you'd like for that to happen. But I
Oh,
really
this
apologize for the
fine.
craziness. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.